Board wipes. Hello guys and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, I want to discuss one thing that I cannot stand within any card game, and that is board wipes. Now, let me explain myself here. When I'm talking about board wipes, I'm talking about any card that basically says destroy all of a specific thing, right? Most of the time it refers to monsters or creatures or whatever else they may be called within whatever game you may be playing. Most of the time, that is what it is referring to. And for the most part, I cannot stand that. However, in Yu-Gi-Oh! We also have spell trap removal, which I also find to be endlessly frustrating. And the thing is, in both Yu-Gi-Oh! Well, actually, in every card game that I've ever played, anytime a board wipe shows up, it immediately makes the game significantly less fun. Whether for me or for my opponent. Because most of the time, it just kind of invalidates any form of interaction that you would actually have. All of the, puzzle style gameplay that goes into playing the card game just kind of goes out the window and you just click the button and it wins, right? Like, you just remove the monsters. You just remove the problem. It just goes away. You don't have to deal with it anymore. And there's no real interesting gameplay mechanics with that. You just kind of click the button. Yeah, why would you not click the button that immediately deals with all of the problems? And I feel like that is such a disservice to card games. And almost every single time that I have seen these board wipes exist, almost every single time, it has significantly devalued the games that they have been a part of. I think specifically within Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, I want to talk more specifically within, not just Master Duel, but Yu-Gi-Oh! In general. Right now, within Yu-Gi-Oh! It's even worse because there's no costs to the cards, right? Sometimes there are activation requirements, for example with Lightning Storm. At the very least, you can't have face-up cards, but that's not hard, right? You just go second and you click the button and you do the thing, right? Evenly Matched requires you to give up a battle phase, kind of, sometimes, right? So there's that, and then on top of that, most of the other ones, though, just say, nuke the field. Just go away. They're just gone. And I feel like that's so frustrating to have a card that simply states destroy all, or remove all, or send all. It's very dumb. At the very least, with something like Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon, at least the cards would go face down, right? Sure, you could get rid of, Link monsters or something of that nature, but yeah, you're setting the cards face down. Same thing with Book of Eclipse, right? They're still there. You still have to deal with them. They can't just sit there on the field. But they're less of a problem. That I think is at least interesting because it actually has interaction. There's something that you get to do there. There's a little bit more of that puzzle that you get to play with. And I think that's really the disservice that board wipes provide to card games, is that you take away a big element of gameplay, right? That picking apart of an opponent's board, the figuring out the puzzle of how to win a game, right? Because you just click the button and it does it. You just click the button. Well, oh, we did it. And here's the thing. In Magic the Gathering, it gets worse. In my opinion, it gets worse. And the reason I say this is because in Magic the Gathering, right, at the very least, the cards at least require mana. So you can't just nuke the field, right? Just nuke the field. The only problem is that most of the time, they're not a lot of mana. This costs 4 mana. That's not hard. That's not a hard amount of mana to get. Now, to be fair, not every color gets board wipes. So at the very least, they made the worst color even worse. They give it to white, of all colors. Now, I, personally, hate plains. I'm not a big fan of white within Magic, and the reason for that is because, simply put, it has board wipes. It also has a whole bunch of other mechanics that I cannot stand, but I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to talk about the fact that they all get access to board wipes, Day of Judgment, things like No Witnesses. All of these other cards are... There were 9 board wipes that I saw that were just destroy all things, artifacts, tapped creatures, untapped creatures, additional creatures over here, creatures with lesser power, except like you can't have monsters against white. It's so annoying because you're just like, oh, I guess I just lose this matchup because they happen to be able to play this color. And that's even more frustrating because now there's just entire colors that end up just being more of a problem and more annoying, right? It's not like has anyone actually enjoyed being board wiped? Has it ever been a fun experience? I hear so often, especially from Commander players, about Magic the Gathering, where they will talk about how frustrating it is to have your board wiped and to have to play, game 2, basically. You're like, oh yeah, it's Commander game 2. Electric Boogaloo, hooray. And it's so frustrating as a player to sit there, to play your game, and to be like, oh yeah, I got going, I did it, I did my combo, and then it all just disappears. And the thing is, again, if it cost a large amount of mana, like for example, I actually don't mind Rise of Sozin too much, except for the fact that it's a saga, which I'll talk about in a second. But like, for 6 mana, in black specifically, with requiring 2 black, at least 2 black mana sources, I think it's not as bad, right? Because black is not a mana ramp source. 6 mana requires a lot more investment. You do have to get a lot. The problem is that it also does other things because it's also a saga, meaning that after the 3rd turn, or more specifically, after that first turn, it just being on the field means that it does additional things, right? On the next turn, you choose a card name, search target opponent's grave, hand, library for up to 4 cards of that, and then exile them. So on the next turn, you're also exiling an entire card from the opponent's deck. They just don't get it anymore. Oh, great. Yeah, that's really cool, right? And then on the last one, you get a big guy. So why are we also having the ability to nuke the entire field, right? If it said something along the lines of like, oh, destroy all creatures with power less than 5, or something like that, I could be like, okay, at the very least, that means that when Sozin hits the field, you could potentially have like a big guy, or maybe over 5 or something like that, or like over 4 or something of that nature, right? But it's such a frustrating aspect of this game as well, even with the mana costs, because the mana costs are not high enough. And I think that is such a disheartening thing, because it's like, oh cool, I'll play this board wipe and then also do like 4 other things, because that's just how mana works in Magic, right? Maybe not 4 other things, but like, oh, I'll wipe the board and then play one of my own creatures. And it's like, oh, cool, yeah, now you have another guy. And it's just so, again, it's taking away a huge element of the way that card games work. It's like, oh yeah, stop them from making their board, or pick it apart. And I think those are like really, really fun, right? Slowing the opponent down to a point where they don't get to make all of their things, where they don't have all of their interactions, or they don't have all of this board presence, and then, or, just slowly pick it apart. Be like, okay, this is the problem, and then this is the problem, and then this is the problem. And being able to figure that out is the best part of a lot of these games. Most notably within Yu-Gi-Oh! I think it is so fun to be able to pick apart an opponent's board and to figure out that puzzle, and to just be like, okay, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with this? What's the problem here? How do I deal with this? But if I just gotta go activate Raigeki, I win the game, that sucks. It's just boring. It's just not nearly as interesting, right? Now, there is one game that I think has a board wipe that I do like, and I want to talk about it. The card that I'm thinking of is Ruination, or specifically the Ruination, which literally just says, kill all units. It's the same thing as a bunch of these other decks, right? And a bunch of these other cards. The only difference is twofold. One, it's 9 mana, which means that you only get it on the 9th turn, because that's when you get 9 mana, unless you have a way of creating mana faster, which this specific faction doesn't. And the maximum amount of mana, generally speaking, is 10. Right? You can technically have more, to cast specifically spells, so you can have up to 12. But even with that being said, you're not really doing much after this, right? You're not just going to be able to wipe the board and then kill the opponent. For the most part, right? However, this faction also does synergize around specifically killing your own units and generating advantage off of that. However, again, the other thing to keep in mind with this card, and one of the other reasons that I like this, first of all, it's slow. At the very least, both players have had a chance to actually play the game, and just due to the nature of the way that Legends of Runeterra works, by the way, one of the greatest games of all time, at the very least, both players have had a chance to play the game. They've both had a large chance to sling cards and to try and crack the opponent's board before this card comes out. And then after this card comes out, likely the Shadow Isle player will have more of an advantage, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you will also die, right? Because towards this point in the game, you will have a ton of mana and likely have the ability to either sling big, powerful, important spells, or have the ability to, at the very least, put something onto the board and not just immediately die, right? And the other important thing is that it's slow, meaning if your opponent elects to do a thing, you can't really respond with this. Yeah, I mean, it's slow, right? Your opponent has the opportunity to interact with this with pretty much anything, which is fantastic. That's really cool. And because of the way that priority works in this game, priority, right? Whoever has the opportunity to make the next action, it's really difficult to just have a simple open board state where this is going to be advantageous. In fact, if it's the opponent's action, they can kind of just go to combat immediately before you even have a chance to play this. So they could still get in their attacks prior to you being able to wipe the board, which I think, again, works really well in this card's advantage and just in general when it comes to Legends of Runeterra. This is like the best that it could get, right? Because yeah, you do get an advantage by being able to play this card, but also it's so slow and it's not exactly a big payoff because you're still killing all of your own units as well, right? Sure, you might generate advantage off of it, and for the most part, you probably will, right? Given the fact that you are playing the faction that wants to kill their own units, but you're also not guaranteed to be able to rebuild, and the opponent will also likely have the ability to rebuild as well due to the nature of the way that this game works, right? If I activate the Ruination, my opponent's going to get the next action, which means immediately they could throw down another guy. So I could go, cool, here's Ruination, because that's the only real spell that I'd be able to play that turn. So it's not like I'd be like, oh, I'm going to activate this other spell, and then you're going to play one of your big guys, and then I go Ruination, right? That's highly unlikely, right? It might be possible, but it is unlikely. So what's likely to happen is I go Ruination, nuke the field, reset everyone, and then you get the first action to play a big guy. And then I play a dingus, or something of that nature, right? Just like a little 1-1, where like I have a bunch of guys that float, or something of that nature. So, for the most part, this card is what a board wipe should be. And yet, even then, I still don't think it's worth it. I think you're better off just having something along the lines of dealing damage, right? Just having an absurdly high number in terms of damage that it would deal to all units or something of that nature, right? Maybe specifically dealing with units of specific costs or just like having something that's not immediately removing everything, right? When it's just a blanket removal, it's very frustrating because there's no real way to play around that. You just die. You don't have that interaction available to you. Anyway, that's all. I just think that board wipes are really boring. Just like every single game that I have played where I've been board wiped, minus this one, I've just felt so frustrated by it, right? Because you're just like, oh yeah, I guess I just die. Cool. Yeah, nothing I could do. And playing a board wipe as well, I've never really enjoyed, because it's just like, cool, either this resolves and I immediately win the game, or it either doesn't resolve, or it never mattered in the first place because my opponent was just so much farther ahead in advantage and they could just rebuild immediately, right? So it never feels like it's creating an interesting game. And as a player of these games, I mostly want to play a fun game. I'm not here specifically just to win. If I was here just to win, I wouldn't be playing a game of luck. I'll tell you that. I'm here to have fun. I want to play these games. I want to have fun with them. And for the most part, board wipes don't provide that for me. So, I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. Let me know if you agree. Do you think that I'm insane for not liking the ability to just click a button and immediately destroy the entire opponent's board? Or am I right and based? Probably not, let's be honest. But thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys did indeed enjoy. Hello. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.